Initiative Awards 2018. I'm Sandy. If you were at the TED session, you'll know that I was the one that was crying at the end. So I hope you've noticed, as the magic of show business, we have gone from the rather New York setting that we had for the TED session to something, I think, a little bit more Parisian, which is entirely appropriate. And, I woke up this morning, I was thinking about women using their initiative, and there was a really nice coffee machine in my room, and I made a perfect cup without any grounds in it because a woman called Melita Bentz invented the coffee filter. I had a chocolate chip cookie, because honestly, life is too short not to, and I blessed a woman called Ruth Wakefield for thinking of them. I didn't have to wash my cup, partly because I am staying in a hotel, but I didn't have to worry about the staff having to do it because a wonderful woman called Josephine Cochran invented the dishwasher. I sat down at my computer to check my emails, and I thanked Ada Lovelace, who in the 1840s created the scientific language that made the very first computer work. And then I drove here worrying that it might rain because, Singapore, it can rain. And I gave thanks to Mary Anderson, who invented the windscreen wiper. Now, of course, it was a woman who invented the windscreen wiper. Up until then, men have been quite happy saying, "Don't worry, dear, I can see perfectly well." Women have been using their initiative since cavemen first came back from hunting without any meat, and women thought, well, we'll starve if this carries on, we'd better invent agriculture. This is my second year hosting these awards in this wonderful city, so I can give you my personal guarantee that you are in for a treat. This year, the theme is bold alchemy. So I'm sure we all know about the bold part, but what is alchemy? Well, it is a really wonderful word which refers to a philosophical and early scientific tradition practiced throughout Europe, Africa, and Asia, and it aimed to purify, mature, and perfect certain objects. To turn lead, for example, into gold, or to find the elixir of immortality. Well, now, I am not at all sure we shall find eternal life here this evening, but I do know that you are going to see an awful lot of base metal turned into something much more precious, and done so with vision and boldness. And I was thinking, as we are guests of one of France's most famous names, it seems rather appropriate that the English language gets the word alchemy from Old French. But I have to tell you, the French got it from medieval Latin speakers, who in turn borrowed it from Arabic, who in turn borrowed it from the Greeks. I have no idea where the Greeks got it from. That's as far back as I was able to go. The word itself represents a melting pot of cultures and civilizations sharing a desire to express something about how we live and how we might improve that life, and that is what this wonderful awards ceremony is all about. This evening, we celebrate women from around the globe who, no matter what their native language is, have used their intelligence and creativity in efforts to make the world a better place. The range of work created by our 18 finalists will not only impress you, it will make you glad that you were here. But before we begin, we are delighted to have a few words which were recorded for us by Sophie Grigor-Trudeau, the wife of the current Prime Minister of Canada. Sophie Grigor is involved in a great deal of charity work focusing mainly on women's and children's issues.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the 2018 Cartier Women's Initiative Awards. And thank you to everyone on the CWIA team for making this amazing initiative possible. And to everyone here tonight, thank you for coming together to celebrate women entrepreneurs. And of course, congratulations to all of tonight's winners and finalists. Each day, you do incredible work to push the envelope and create meaningful social impact. You show us what's possible with creativity and innovation, and tonight is a testament to your leadership and vision. We all know that when women have a strong voice in business and have the tools and support that they need to be able to thrive and bring their ideas to life, they transform communities, industries, and our world. But we have so much work left to do to make women's empowerment a reality in every sector across the society. So CWIA is an amazing example of how we can work together as men and women and drive change by empowering women entrepreneurs. À tous ceux qui sont présents ici ce soir, merci. Vous nous montrez la voie vers plus de justice et plus d'égalité, vers un monde meilleur. From my heart to yours, du fond du cœur, merci. Thank you.
We're going to kick things off with a conversation because that's often a starting point for something absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to be joined on stage by the President and CEO of Cartier International, Cyrille Vigneron. And with him, we are delighted to welcome, she's a fantastic person. She is the woman who holds the distinction of being the first woman to hold a ministerial post in the United Arab Emirates. Please welcome Her Excellency Sheikha Lubna Al Qasimi. Just here, sweetie. You want to sit here? Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm like the sheepdog for the evening. I just make sure everybody stays in the right place. Cyrille, congratulations. These awards are now over 10 years old. I mean, you must be so proud. I want to know what it is about them which makes you want to keep them going.
So as you said, it's been more than a decade. And as was said before, it's been very successful. It worked so well that most of the businesses have continued. And more than that, has created a community which is unique. And it doesn't stop when there is the event and the award. It continues. And the relationship from all those who have come for a week like this one, the finalists, and then with a member of the jury and with their mentor continue for years and years. And when we had in the TED presentation, Hala, who was one of the first laureate, and had gone with such a beautiful experience afterwards. So it's so meaningful that the question is just how to make it bigger,
yes,
and how to get more network, and how to make this community really empowered to change even more. It's probably one of the most powerful community I've ever seen.
Now, Your Excellency, I'm going to start by saying that you are extremely familiar with these awards, are you not?
Yes, I am, because I was the president for the Asia Jury Committee, and later on it was for the MENA region. So for me, this has been a great experience and a great path, not only to understand the power of such initiative, but to really see how people work. And I was extremely touched and impressed by Cartier, where I come from, my part of the world in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Everybody knows Cartier for the luxury items, but they really never go beyond that by looking at the depth of what Cartier contributes to the world. And within my experience, at that time, I was a Minister for Economy, and it was very tough to maintain this business of networking with all the women jury, but also working. But for me, it was a huge credit to the organization of Cartier and the women and the men within the organization who were working regionally, like within the Dubai office, as well in Paris, to make sure for us as jury members that we can actually deliver and we can go through this. So we had the best support system, and I think we owe it to that group, in particular, and to Cartier, that this particular initiative had grown from success to success.
Well, I think when I first came last year, I think what surprised me, Cyrille, was the range of businesses. It is astonishing. Are there times when you think, I can't quite believe how much we've gathered together for just one single award ceremony? I mean, are you as astonished as I am by the range? Clearly you are. Clearly you are, because you're not speaking to me.
Yeah. Speechless.
The number of applications has only grown.
Yeah.
And the more we support and the more we give, of course, financial support, but on the other side, the more the community has become so strong, the more people want to join. and coming from all the part of the world and doing something which has real impact, but can be so diverse and different, from high technology to agriculture or to health and care and medical care or many, many things. And so many ideas come, which are so simple at the beginning, complicated to do, but then with the determination can come to reality. And just to listen to these stories, personal stories, is so touching and so inspiring.
I can add to this. From my experience, we see everything through paper until we actually eventually decide on the selection of the finalists. But when we meet in real time and we actually interview these young women, the amount of gratification that you feel and you get inspired by their stories and what they've done is remarkable. But what's more remarkable is the sustainability of these programs beyond the award. I mean, in many initiatives, you see people, you see the awardees just being given the award at that time, but beyond that, you don't hear from them. But what I've seen here is the continuation of this, the whole system that's been built to support these women through for their growth is incredible. And that, I think, is really the success for the Cartier initiative. And to me, this is really what brings people together with passion to do this. I've met so many people throughout this path of as being a jury member, and just the inspiring stories that you hear from everyone, from not only the jury members, but the mentors, people who are willing to come and help these women, from the consulting firms, the universities, everybody. It was like, it's just one common goal for all of us to see these women succeed and really have a rewarding experience.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the interplay between philanthropy and social entrepreneurship. So philanthropy, obviously a wonderful thing, but I wonder if sometimes it's a little bit innocent of what is actually needed. What do you think, Cyril?
Well, we need both. And there are some activities, like needs to be just funded and to work with absolutely no economic outcome. But often, if you just give, at some point it's over. And it's very difficult to have something that can continue if there is not an economic kind of weaving out of it. So social entrepreneurship in some way have a purpose, and then it's a business as well. So it creates economic movement around it. And so usually it's more sustainable. There were some organization, there's kind of water.org, where it's just not putting wells, but also paying water. Because if the water is paid, there is someone who is taking care. If it's taken care, it's maintained and continues. Otherwise, at some point, it gets distorted or it gets destructed or someone steals it and it's over. So the difference of philanthropy, which is needed in certain areas, especially when you have a refugee crisis, and so you need real quick aid and support. And some organizations like Red Cross or Médecins Sans Frontières are doing an incredible job, and that is philanthropy, and nothing can replace. But when it comes to economic movement, social entrepreneurship can be more powerful because it empowers people to take care of their own lives.
Well, the fact that it's self-sustaining is very empowering.
Absolutely. And I think coming from a government background, we always look, I was in charge for 4 years of humanitarian aid and international development. And 80% of contribution from the governments toward countries is really more toward projects, whether building infrastructure or businesses. So the idea of social entrepreneurship is you're looking at that country with probably a GDP per capita that was below 10,000, so they're eligible for contribution. But the minute you start these programs, you are pushing that country to go above it. And all of a sudden, the country itself changes in its formula and it sustains itself. So it's a survival path rather than a handout that you continue. So helping societies where you lift a lot of young people or people like the stories we heard today that were just remarkable, you really are lifting the whole economy. It's not just about women. They are major contributors, but you change the formula of that country too.
Now, one of the things that we are celebrating this evening is boldness. Not only were you the very first female minister of the UAE, you've also held a number of different ministerial posts, which is rare. Lots of our finalists are pioneers in their field. I wonder what you feel are the particular challenges of being a woman who is first at something. There are still lots of firsts that women are doing.
I came from a computer engineering background. I worked as a software development. I spent time in Dubai ports doing a lot of automation and logistics. I also started up a B2B marketplace for the government in Dubai. I did e-government. A lot of these projects were really more within my field, within my comfort zone. But then out of the blue, the government decides that we want you, and it wasn't a window dressing by saying, well, maybe we'll just put her for tourism or health, or, you know, the typical mode of an entitled minister as a woman. They said, no, economy. And in 2004 to 2008, actually, the GDP had grown. So within that time that I was there, things had worked. But I also was the chairman for the financial market, so the authority that actually changes a lot of the public companies and the IPOs and all of this. And I remember that I was very much hated at that time. And the reason was that there were a lot of green companies, and very similar to the dot-com and Silicon Valley. These companies were, they are startup, and then they sell the shares prior even to operating a company. And I took this to the government saying, this is an alarming practice that exists. We didn't have a law for it because we can actually have a crisis, financial crisis, based on this, because you're building companies with a certain value that's not really real. And sure enough, the government supported that, but boy, was I hated by a lot of men, because that decision sustained the economy toward 2008 afterward, when there was a financial crisis happening worldwide at that time. But also, as I moved to the humanitarian aid, one of the issues that we had as a government is that UAE has been a very giving society and a government toward the world, but there was no mention of this as a soft power for the UAE. So as a computer engineer looking at data and analysis, all I did, I mean, it wasn't about passion about humanitarian aid at that time. It was just a technical mind where I started to collect the data and then recording it in the right system, whether it's through the OECD or whether it's the UN. And through this, within 3 months, UAE actually had leaped on the OECD in terms of the most generous nation per income per GNI, from 19 to number 1, and we've been as number 1 for the 5th year now. Wow. So that in itself is what I gained my respect in the government through delivering initiatives like that, where you are in a situation, but you have to have faith in your talents and your understanding, but you have to work with people, and you have to move forward. But in order to do this, these accomplishments in itself is what had risen me to go from one position to the other, where I actually managed 4 ministries at the end. And the last one I did till October last year was the Minister of State for Tolerance, which was the first post worldwide. And I remember in the UN, in the UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly, people are saying, what? Why would you have a post like a ministry for tolerance? Well, the world is changing. There's so much polarization. There's a lot of changes worldwide in terms of hatred, and you see this now. You see it in so many, and the rise of populism. And the idea was that we as societies, all of us, we must have a call to start to institutionalize this process of values that we live by and we take it for granted, but the change is happening. Radicalization to all children started to happen because of social media, where your kid at home is not really sitting with you. He's sitting physically with you, but he's not controlled by you. So the idea of introducing moral education through the curriculum, doing programs and hate laws and all of this is really very pertinent and very important in this day and age. And a lot of this is completely new to what you would think of a public service that's given by a government. But when you're in that post as a woman, people watch you, and sometimes they think, she's not going to make it. But the only way to do it is, like a lot of the women that we hear today, is through courage. Yeah. You really have to have faith in yourself. And as so many said today, not to be self-deprecating and not to have guilt issues, but just to have this strong faith about yourself that you will make a difference and you will make that change.
So was there a moment when you were first woman minister about to go into your first ministerial meeting? Was there a moment when you felt you had a responsibility for all women?
Yes, yes, I have that moment as well. I remember I was called by one of the ministers who spoke for the late Sheikh Zayed, who was our president at the time, and he said, the government wants you to be a minister for economy, and what do you say? I was in Tunis at that time, in Tunisia, and I had the weirdest answer. I said, I have to consult with my mother. And there was silence. There was silence on the other side. I don't know why I said it, but I thought, I really have to talk to my mom.
I think-
Of course, my mother supported me. But for 3 weeks, I did not sleep. I came from private sector, and all of a sudden, I have 300 employees in a public sector environment, and all I could think is, how am I going to do this? I'm being challenged. And then in 3 weeks' time, 4 a.m., I just woke up and I thought, but the government put me here, the leaders, they will support me to succeed. There is a statement in this that why they wanted me. They've seen my record in the private sector. They've seen my accomplishment. So why am I scared? And all of a sudden, calmness, all out of the blue, just all of a sudden, I just calmed down. I thought, okay, I can work. I can do this.
And your mum, she was okay?
Yeah, my
Okay,
mom.
okay.
My mom said, of course you say yes. Because I always ask my mom.
Yes. All right. Still yet to do something my mother will be pleased about. So we were talking about, Cyril, that there was a Ministry of Tolerance, you were the Minister of Tolerance. Diversity and embracing the cultural diversity there's a treasure trove of cultural diversity in this program. That's very much at the core of what you're doing, isn't it?
Yes, so that's both kind of personal beliefs and also a part of what has been Cartier about for forever, meaning being curious, open-minded, going to the world and see how the real world is. And have traveled in Middle East, in Asia, in China, and both being inspired by people, but also by the aesthetic sense. So many of the aesthetic features have become part of our signatures. So it's part of the DNA to be open in there. And that's in general. And no more in the current world, as I believe in the value of diversity, so gender diversity and cultural diversity of point of view. The world is diverging, you're moving to many different directions, and very quickly. And if you don't have diversity of point of view, you get lost. So when you have something which is in a pyramid of power, of people thinking all the same, in place where things do not change. So we are headquartered in Geneva, and Geneva is probably the most stable place on Earth, meaning it's the same as 100 years ago, and nothing changed. Except if you have many, many international organizations in there that didn't exist 100 years ago. Stade des Nations was founded after the First World War and first found its place in Geneva. So it's both very open to the world, but something that every day the same. When you see what's been happening in Dubai and Abu Dhabi in the past 50 years, or in Singapore in the past 50 years, or in Shanghai in the past 50 years, it's absolutely different. So the new generation there think absolutely differently because the world is changing so fast.
Well, Lubna, you and I were talking last night about you have lived in many places around the world, including, I have to say, the best country in the world, Denmark, which is, I was impressed to know that you've lived there. Do you believe that there is such a thing as being a global citizen? Do you think that's...
Absolutely. I think coming from an environment within the UAE as a sheltered, as a kid, being brought up in a very protective environment, one of the rules of my parents was if I studied abroad, and I went to California to study computer engineering. I was the first computer engineer for the UAE, and that was late 70s, but they were mandated that I have to live with a family, with an American family. And then prior to that, I was doing my A-levels in Brighton, and I was studying in Ramsgate for English language prior to going to the US. And within the UK as well, I lived with families. And in 91, I got a scholarship from the Japanese, and I studied project management with technology with NTT in Okinawa. Again, I had a family that was part of it. What really made the mark in my career is not the education I had. That was probably less than 50%, but actually living with families that are not of my culture and understanding who they are, what they're all about. And to me, that was the passion that I had built in my heart. When you live in the UAE, we have over 200 nationalities in the UAE. Singapore has similar numbers in terms of diversity. But I also come from a technology background, and if you look at Oracle or Microsoft, or if you go to their offices in Silicon Valley, you'll see the diversity there as well. So today, in most places in the world, what drives this diversity, I think, is the nomadic lifestyle of the young generation. that they don't move because they think this is a country I want to live in, or I'm comfortable within my country. They are eager to explore the world. They move. They have a completely different cultures than us. We like to sit in a comfort zone where they don't. And that sense of adventure is really what drives their passion and their ambitions. And they don't mind living abroad in any place they want. But their net gain is far more than we had.
But also
in our
the
life.
ability to stay connected even when they go back home,
Yes.
that the interconnection now is
Absolutely.
astonishing, isn't
Yes,
it?
yeah.
Cyril, we're here because of the generosity and vision of Cartier. I want to know what you see as the next milestone for these awards. Where do you see them heading?
Well, to continue and to grow in this network. That's why we also added this partnership with TED Women, because after giving financial support, we think the most important thing, especially in global citizenship, is a network. Some part that most of the finalists had mentioned in different years is feeling lonely. Many come from very, very rural areas or even environment where they're not supported, and they go to their own thing, their own vision, but it's very difficult to go alone. So when coming to this week and finding they have sisters who are thinking same way of different thing, then it helps a lot. And then when thinking another big community supporting, it's the best thing to do. So I think the next miles to go are to increase the reach of that community and to make it also more known so that there are more applicants that will come and will continue to be contagious. So we say we have now to contaminate the entire world.
Lubna, it's my job to keep us to time, but before we finish, I wonder, we have all our finalists sitting in the front. Is there any advice from your wonderful experiences that you would pass to them?
It is interesting that you say I came from a privileged family, but I worked for the private sector, I worked for the government. But I always stayed true to myself. And today I felt the same with the TED women who spoke today, that what can drive you eventually to do the right thing for yourself, for the people, for our sisters, it really is to stay true to yourself, to have that belief. And I think that path will continue for everybody if you start with yourself first.
Your Excellency, Cyril Vignon, thank you so very much indeed.
Thank you.
Right. I seem to be on the wrong. There we go. Sorry, I got the cards in the wrong order, but there we are. That's all live, which I enjoy. Here we are. We have, well, it's almost an embarrassment of riches, if I may say so, this evening in terms of fabulous people to talk to. Please welcome to the stage the Dean of the Business School for the World, INSEAD, Ilhan Mihoff, along with two amazing women, Anousheh Ansari and Shinta Kamdani. Please come to the stage. Let me begin by telling you just a tiny little bit about our female guests, first of all, if I may. So, Anousheh, you are an Iranian-American engineer and co-founder and chairwoman of Prodia Systems, which is a technology and a services management company. Now, on September the 18th, 2006, I hope you don't mind me saying in front of everybody, it was a few days after your 40th birthday, is that all right? You did something astonishing. What was it?
I flew to International Space Station.
How about that, huh? Do you want to, isn't that incredible? So, but you paid to go, is that right?
I did.
Yeah. This is incredible to me. You're the first self-funded woman to go to the International Space Station?
Yes, this was something I wanted to do since I was very, very young, and I looked for many different ways to accomplish this task. And at the end of the day, it was building a company, selling the company, and then buying a ticket.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm hosting these awards, I feel like I've done nothing in my life. After all, That's absolutely fantastic. What did I ask you yesterday? I met you yesterday. I asked you what time is it in space. I didn't know if you got jet lag when you went to space. But you don't. You do or don't get jet lag?
You don't. They follow the GMT timeline, and then they move toward Houston or toward Moscow, depending on when there's a launch from either.
Depending on who's in charge. I got it. Okay. Shinta, welcome. You are a prominent businesswoman, CEO of Syntesa Group, which under your leadership continues to experience growth in various industries, including property, manufacturing, energy, health, and consumer products. You were named one of the 50 most influential Asian women by Forbes Asia magazine. Fantastic. You're an amazing entrepreneur, but I know that you don't want to be alone at the top, do you? You want others to join you, especially women, and women have been entering the labour force. But there does seem to be a problem getting women into leadership positions, doesn't there?
Yes, that's correct, Sandy. Especially where I'm coming from Indonesia. I think what's happening is actually now we have almost equal women entering the labor force. But unfortunately, they don't go up in the career ladder. And part of the problem is they usually prefer to stay in a certain position rather than being promoted. Not because they don't have the potential or the ability, but they don't want to. So. And this is the biggest problem is because they prefer to have that work-life balance. So they need, their main responsibility is basically taking care of the household.
Right.
So they want a job that would be able to enable them to do both. And they think if they go up in their career ladder, that will be more difficult because that will be a sacrifice to the family. So this is something that is a big challenge in Indonesia. So we have very small percentage. So for example, now in the middle management, we only have 20-something%, and even the board now we have like 5% sitting in the board. So we have a big issue, and this is only women in business. In politics, it's the same problem. So overall, I think women tend to not want to be in the leadership position.
And Anusha, what about in your area? You work in the tech sector. We often hear the difficulty of recruiting women into what they call the STEM section, so science, tech, engineering, mathematics. How do you see things in your area of expertise?
It's true. It's very lonely, actually, being an engineer and, in the classrooms and then in the workplace. And then, of course, as a CEO also, women's tech CEOs are very rare to find. And to me, it's a shame because I think our world is changing rapidly due mainly to technologies are changing exponentially. And a lot of these technologies are being designed and used by men. And as we heard from some of our TED speakers, when you get women's ideas and innovation involved, things take a different path. And I do hope that we get to see a lot more women involved in technology. And it starts at very young age. Some of the work I do is with young girls at elementary school level because that's where they, get their interest picked in the sciences or they may go a different way. And having role models and helping them to see opportunities and career paths that doesn't make them an outcast, doesn't make them, hated by all the boys in the class, is important for them to know that they can go technology, they can be successful, and they can be loved, and they can have a very fulfilling personal life.
Now, Ilian, you're the Dean of INSEAD, which is one of our partners here at the Cartier Women's Initiative Awards. You're training women in business. Do you see that there are the issues that we're talking about here, certainly in terms of leadership positions?
I think that certainly there are issues, but before I say this, I have to say I'm a professor before I'm a dean, and I usually talk a lot, so stop me if I talk too much.
Don't worry, but I have no trouble getting men to be quiet. It's fine.
I think at first, before I go into answering your question, I'm speechless. So I have to go deep down somewhere inside, find that overconfidence that you're talking about in order to say something meaningful. And I have overconfidence. This thing about the windscreen wipers,
yeah.
My wife says all the time, turn on the wipers because it's raining. I see. Anyway, we do see a lot of issues. What is really interesting these days
is that INSEAD, we started this year, we have a big initiative called IW50, because 50 years ago we have the first 2 women join INSEAD as MBA students. So we're celebrating this milestone. And we started the gender initiative. What is really interesting about today, this time, is that our gender initiative, as well as a lot of other people, are working to uncover what are the reasons for all these impediments, obstacles, why women do not progress as much as you would like to or you would expect, where are the biases. And the results are, I think they're very insightful and very meaningful. I think it's 20, 30 years, there have been many attempts to understand why don't we see more women in tech or more women in leadership positions. And there has been a lot of goodwill. My feeling is for the first time we really have answers that can help us create some new paths towards empowering women and getting real diversity in the boardroom, in the executive positions in tech. As I said, I talk a lot, so please stop me, but I can start talking about some of these things and why they are important.
Well, if I may, I would just like to ask Shinta what you think are maybe the practical support mechanisms that we need in order to encourage women. You talked about the issue of balancing the family. Are there things that we can do in a practical way to try and assist women?
Yes. So, I come a background from family business, and my father only have 2 daughters, unfortunately. So I'm basically, obviously, I come from a Indonesian Chinese descent family, and sons are very important. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a choice. So here I am, and I think I grew up trying to prove to him that I can be equally good as a daughter, right? And I can take up the baton from him. So I think proving that with that, I realized all my life that, it's hard when you get the perspective from your society saying, first of all, I'm always called Shinta the triple minority. Why? Because I'm a non-Muslim, I'm a woman, and I'm a Chinese, ethnic Chinese. So I'm called triple minority, imagine or not. But with that, it gives me a lot of motivation to prove myself. And I think by proving myself, I know that I need a lot of support. So over the years, I have many mentors, both men and women. And they keep pushing me and said, Shinta, it's not enough that you prove to your family and that you can also handle and continue the business and even do more in the business, but that you can also do more for the society, right? And this is why I started 2 major initiatives. One is when we talk about gender equality in the workplace, this is still a very, very important message for Indonesia. And most of corporates in Indonesia, they claim themselves gender equality. What is that, So the initiative is basically, I then start looking into many other corporations and set up a business coalition for women empowerment. And what we need to do is basically to not just share best practices, but to really understand when you want to do gender equality in the workplace, what do you need to do? So start from the pay gap, we have to do the recruitment part on gender equality. We also have to look at even small infrastructure facilities. For example, daycare center, daycare in the office building, even lactation rooms, things like that. So what we do now is we have a certification for that. So companies can actually say, okay, if I want to do this, this is what I need to do. Check, right? But that is just one aspect on that initiative. The second that is more important, Sandy, is the woman entrepreneurship. Because to me, Indonesia doesn't create enough jobs right now. So unless we develop more entrepreneurs, that is really the only way for us to boost the economic growth. So women entrepreneurship is a big thing. And this is another initiative that I'm now focusing on.
But some of it seems to me to be a cultural shift, a shift in saying that maybe men and women should share the childcare, which is a crazy, radical idea. And also, particularly in your area, Anusha, that coding, for example, doesn't require any heavy lifting. There is no reason why it couldn't be completely gender equal.
Absolutely. I think, going back to what you said about sharing a responsibility, I think culturally in my part of the world, and I think in Asia is the same, a lot of women grow up thinking that it's only their responsibility to keep the family unit together. And nowadays we see a lot of men want to actually participate. Sometimes women push them back, sometimes society and the families push them back. But I think if we can get to a point where you have that balance of both parents actually taking equal charge of keeping that family unit together is important. In STEM education also, I think you see the same thing where a lot of women think that it's difficult. They're told that they don't belong there. In Iran, like a lot of Middle Eastern countries, there are traditional families that, protect their girls and they want them to go into what they call nice jobs and, discourage girls to go into these fields. And I think as parents, if we have to, if we can start early on as our girls are growing up, to let them take risk, to let them climb that ladder or climb that tree and let them fall down and let them scratch themselves and learn that, they can do things and they can take risks, then we can see more of entrepreneurs, more women entrepreneurs out there. Because sometimes we talked about courage today. I think finding that courage to take that first step, to be able to say, I want to do something, and if I fail, it's okay. It's a very difficult step for women, whereas men, they try 50 different things and they fail 49 times out of 50 and they're okay with it. But women, they're afraid of that just one failure because they feel like the society will tell them, I told you, you can't do this. And it's important for us to try and fail and learn from it and get up and do it again and again and again.
I just want to add one
Yes.
thing, Sandy. I think it's also the for women. A lot of the women that can be successful or are already successful are being blamed for them being successful or too ambitious. I mean, many times people come to me and say, "Oh, that woman, she's too ambitious. She wants all the positions, So this is really a problem because a lot of and I have cases where I have successful women, working for me and earn. And the husband basically come to me and say, I think it's enough, I think, she cannot earn more than me, right? I mean, there are cases like that, believe it or not. There are still men that are like that. So I think this is a problem that we have to face.
I have to say, one of the best things in the world is to have, I have grown-up children. This is a marvelous thing. People say, will you miss them? And I was, no, bye, go now, I have work to do. Ilian, are you aware of some of these biases? When women apply to the school, are these some of the difficulties that they talk about in terms of being able to come and attend your school?
So again, when we look at the data, we can identify biases that are coming either from this attitude, from culture, family, and so on, or there is straightforward discrimination in the workplace. There are sometimes biases that are that are abhorrent, that are terrible, that, you see this, like in one of the events, we saw an interview with a chairman of a top hedge fund company in the US, which, he was saying all the wrong things, why women don't go into financial services and so on. So you see this, but I think that actually what is interesting to me today are the biases that you are not aware of. And not the ones that most of us will realize, that's wrong. It's like in the 1950s or in the 19th century. No, it's not today. And these biases, we have to recognize that each one of us has still some of these biases in us, both men and women. And if I may, I'll tell you my own story. So it's revealing one of my biases. And I think that I'm well-intentioned, so I have 2 daughters. I want them to live in a place where, we don't talk about gender biases because they're gone. But still, this year, on the 1st of January, for the first time in the history of INSEAD, I appointed Dean of Faculty a woman, Professor Laurence Capron, brilliant professor and so on. And Dean of Faculty is the most difficult job at a business school. I was a Dean of Faculty 5 years ago. Being a dean is so much easier. You go to these events, you talk, then you go drink champagne. You know, it's so much better. You know, Dean of Faculty,
Wow.
you have 140 people that everybody has their opinion, they have tenure, they yell at you, they use all the inappropriate words. So I was thinking, in my office, and I was thinking, I'll put Laurence in this position. This idiot, X, will come and then will start attacking her. And I was not ready. And I was thinking, you know what, maybe I'll go with another man. And then I talked to several people, most notably 2 women, and they said, just do it. So I did it, and today, 4 months later, I must say, and don't trust me, you can talk to any one of the department chairs, it is the best Dean of Faculty that INSEAD had ever had. And it's unbelievable. To the extent, so she's running these meetings of the department chairs. We have 9 departments, she's running these meetings, she owns the meeting. So she had 4 meetings already. I attend these meetings, and I told my chief of staff, next time you go to these meetings, because you have to see how to run a meeting. Because my meetings, I don't run them that well. So, but I think that this awareness is very important, and a lot of the research will say, coming from my colleagues, is that if you really want to see progress in this gender equality, the most important thing is to give responsibility to women. And to go in that direction, sometimes you have to become more self-aware of how far you have to push yourself. And I think that this is more dangerous than all these obvious stupid things that some people are saying.
You're agreeing with that?
Yes, I completely agree with that. I think more women, and I think this is why development of women entrepreneurship is very, very important. We want more women entrepreneurs. And I was just sharing stories that actually a lot of women are actually already working for the husband. But the husband is the one that get the recognition of this, this successful work. So what we're trying to do with my second initiative of women entrepreneurs is actually we are now supporting the woman entrepreneur through a woman fund. So I created a fund by women entrepreneurs to help and support women startups. So we call ourselves Angel Investment Angin, that the Women Fund is specifically addressed to help women to women. And this is exactly what we need, the women network to create it. And this is not just about the funding, the financial access, but also the mentoring. I think the mentoring plays a very, very important role. And I can really see now that in Indonesia, when we live in the big cities, we have a lot of access. But a lot of women in other parts of Indonesia, in remote areas, they don't have this kind of access to get mentors, from other successful women. So this is why we also create a platform right now, on mentoring platform, that can link women to women, connect. We call Connector ID.
Which is hugely important, but you mentioned the finance there, Anusha. That is a problem for women. We've seen some figures flashing up on the screen there that women get 1/10 of venture capital. Just being able to finance your startup company is a huge issue for a lot of women, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And you talk about Asia. I have to say, even in Silicon Valley, women have a tough time getting access to funds, and that's where tons of funds available to men with sometimes really, really stupid ideas. But the same, women will go there and they have great ideas and they don't get funding. It's true. It's a shame.
Yes, Ilya.
Because also, if you look at statistically, women CEOs and women entrepreneurs have returned more money and have had a higher chance of success than men. But still, even investment bankers don't look at those numbers when they make.
But this is the thing I don't understand, because our wonderful partners, McKinsey, have provided astonishing figures showing that everybody, men and women, would benefit globally if we were able to close, for example, the gender pay gap. And yet it doesn't happen. It doesn't seem to, that not everybody seems to be on board.
And this is why part of my role is advocacy to the government, because I need the government to listen and see what statistics says, right? That important to bring more women in the economy. And some this is a collaborative effort that needs to be by all parties. And I go through even from the G2G aspect, I advocate through other countries to get so that my government can understand how important this issue is. It's not just having a women empowerment ministry, but having a real work that you can really see result, and not just a jargon to say, yes, we are supporting women empowerment, but what do you actually do? Has the number really improved? And so far, this is I think, a big challenge that we have to face.
I just want to add to this how important governments are and all these policies because, again, citing research, which I think it is really turning point today. In Science, there was an article, I think there were 2 economists who wrote this article, who basically shows that in countries where there is less emancipation, so there is still gender discrimination and so on, the math scores for boys are much better than for girls. In countries where there is emancipation and there is no gender discrimination, much lower, the scores are the same. And the reason that this is important is because those who are pessimistic, those who do not believe that it's an important thing, gender equality and so on, will say, we want to hire the best ones. And look, these boys have better scores than the girls, and that's why we're hiring them. Not understanding that in the background, actually, there is something structural that actually leads to this result. It is not genetic, it is not coming from the DNA, it is coming from the societal institutions and all these beliefs.
So it seems to me from a lot of the things that we've heard today, from the TED sessions and from what you're saying, is that what we need to foster is in many women is a positive mindset. And I wonder, we have to finish now, but I wonder if all 3 of you would like to say something to our finalists that might encourage them in their journey ahead. Anusha, can I start with you?
Well, I think being realistic in what you want to do is important. And what I mean by being realistic is understand that the journey will be tough and it will be difficult, and you will have to make a lot of sacrifices. So once you enter this journey with a prepared mind, that increases your chances of success. And I think I love the word that was used, courage. Courage is what every entrepreneur needs, and women entrepreneurs more than anyone else.
Ilian.
Well, I think that, for the entrepreneurs and in general, I think that there is no silver bullet in resolving all these things. I think that we are fighting mindsets and beliefs and norms that have been with the human mankind for thousands, tens of thousands of years. But at the same time, we're at an inflection point where things are changing. And if I have one message to the audience, it is only that it's our joint problem. It's not women's problem. It's a problem of men and women together, because that will build a better society and better future for boys and girls, for our children going forward.
Yes, wonderful. And Shinta?
Yes, I would like to actually appeal to Cartier. I think, I understand that you will still want to do more awareness, but, there are many startups around the world, even in Indonesia. It's unimaginable. So I think you are here, finalists, you are actually champions, and I would like to see also for us in our respective country to bring more of these startups out. I mean, a lot of them are not seen, and I think they need to be pushed to be, to go out there and be seen and learn from others. And I think learning from each other is very important. We have to create this big network, and no longer within a certain country, but, around across the globe. So I think this is very important, and Cartier, I think, with this initiative can play a very big role.
Thank you very much to all 3 of you. Wonderful. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Ilian. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, my lovely. Thank you, Shinta. It was lovely. Thank you, Shirley. Right, time now to learn a little bit more about our finalists, and in keeping with the entrepreneurial, I have no idea what you're doing, but you're very welcome. In keeping with the entrepreneurial spirit of the evening, we have a really innovative way of telling some of these stories. So first, 5 of our finalists are each going to present a live story talk in which they will share a major lesson of their professional journey, illustrated by an object which helps their story. So here's a kind of riddle. What do a chance meeting at the school gates, a bus ticket, a pair of earrings, a book, and a badminton racket have in common? Well, all of them prompted an astonishing journey for these finalists. Let's hear their stories.
I love being with the young hearts and fresh spirits. My company was conceived on my daughter's very first day of school, when I met my future business partner, Rania, accompanying her daughter as well. We have 5 beautiful daughters. This is a picture of all 7 of us together. They are the core of my team, and they inspire us to be role models for them. A year into our business, during our branding process, my partner and I had different views about our future logo. Okay. They were supposed to put it here, so... So actually, I need to show the logo, but I think there was an issue that...
Oh, yay! Yay!
Thank you. So we were given 3 options for the logo, and we had different views. We didn't know which one to choose. So we asked our team, our 5 beautiful girls. At that time, they were 4, 5, 7, 8, and 8. And for them, the choice was actually quite obvious. They saw something that we didn't see. They had a vision that enlightened us. This was their obvious logo. So my Lily says, who's my youngest daughter, "Mommy, I can see the sun, and those are the rays." Hannah and Amina says, "No, that's an eye, and those are the lashes." And Hannah and Nouri says, "Actually, it's a smile." And that was it. That sums it all. To us, we bring light into people's eyes, the sun. It's an eye, obviously, that's what I do. And it's a smile. Our mission is to make our patients happy. Little girls with dreams become women with vision. Thank you very much.
Well done. Really good. Who have I got next? Who's next up? Christina? There you go.
This Sofia Vienna bus ticket is much more than a ticket. Actually, this was the ticket for my life journey. This was the ticket for my new life, my entrepreneurship life. At that time, actually originally I'm coming from Bulgaria. And at that time when I had the idea to develop a new tablet for people with sight loss, nobody believed that this could be possible. Nobody saw the potential. So I decided to move. And to move to Austria, where the support for social entrepreneurs was stronger. Leaving the country, packed all my belongings in 4 suitcases. Turned out to be very difficult. After 2 unsuccessful attempts by plane, by car, I decided to try by bus. After 2 days traveling, I arrived at the Austrian central bus station. No family, no friends, no home was waiting for me. I was afraid. I was alone by my own. But at that time, however, I said to myself, I take this decision. I make it by my own. And right now, I have to be responsible for my own decisions. So let's go. This first decision, this first step was difficult. But there were so many others following, even more difficult. And right now, I'm really happy that I make this decision. And I'm happy, I'm really Right now I know that the mission that made me throughout doing all of this was entrepreneurship. This was the step that changed my life forever. Thank you.
Hanan.
No, you cannot do it. You cannot change the education. You cannot change the curriculum that's been established with the ministries of education. And what coding? Forget it. That would never work. Schools are not equipped with computer labs. And teachers are not coders. So how are you going to do it? It's a no-no story. But wait a minute. I saw a very big and serious problem. My children are not being prepared with the digital skills required for their tomorrow. So it's not your right. It's their right. It's our right as parents. So I decided to change this. And I decided to make it happen. I wrote a curriculum for kids. I started teaching coding for teachers. We invented a new programming language for kids to make it easy and nice for them to learn code. And guess what? The Ministry of Education has adopted my curriculum for 40,000 students in Jordan. And we are rolling out the curriculum internationally. But what makes me really feel most fulfilled is to see one child, and maybe only one child, who learns my curriculum, learns how to code, and use it to be more happy and more proud. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
These are my shaways. They are Mapuche silver earrings. I have so many of them, actually, it was hard to pick. These were given to me by a very close friend of mine, and it's a little bit like she would be here. Mapuche means the people of the earth, and it's the largest indigenous group in Chile and a big part of our cultural heritage. According to the legend, silver are the tears the moon cried up on earth after her husband, the sun, tried to knock her off the horizon. He failed. To me, that story contains the two most important things you need as an entrepreneur: the courage of being vulnerable and resilience. It's okay to show your feelings, to be sad or even cry, but then you need to pick yourself up, dust yourselves off, and show up. And you need to continue to show up every single day, spiritually, mentally, physically. And just like the moon, some days you let other stars shine more than you, and then there are other days when you take the whole spotlight. But no matter what, you show up and you attack that day.
A few months ago, my team contacted me and said that a 15-year-old girl who we had fit with our prosthetic limb had broken her device. And it sent our whole team into panic. How does something that we tested so heavily break on someone who's light as a 15-year-old? What did we do wrong? We stopped our production, afraid that maybe this might be the end of non-spec. And what we decided to do is go and dive into the problem. we started talking to the family and to our amputee, and what they told us was that, one, she was just simply walking, and she noticed that the device broke under her. And she was fine, she didn't fall, she got home safely. And the other thing was that her family was really excited. And we're like, why are you so happy? You want her back on our device, which is great, but why? It turns out that the day before, she had actually played her favorite sport, badminton, for 4.5 hours on our limb. And it was incredible. And so what we really learned is that we have to make sure that we're making this device for every activity that you or I would ever want to do. So she inspired us to make sure that we were making really durable devices. We've done some, and we cannot wait to see more amputees using our device. And that was really the best sporting lesson I've ever gotten.
Do you know what's so wonderful is that you see each the person up here, but as they go back down, the pleasure of the other finalists. I think you guys have made friends for life here. I'm having a heck of an evening. I'm crying, I'm laughing. Now, next up, 7 more fabulous finalists. This time they're going to be featured through excerpts from interviews and footage of their projects. These 7 projects are so diverse, and yet what they have is common ground. Each of our finalists saw a need and were motivated to help those around them. Let's take a look.
In terms of our motivation to start this company, it's really about not just making a sustainable product, but a product that's helpful to all of the women that use it as well.
I'm trying to solve the problem of the lack and the unavailability of blood in hospitals here in Cameroon. That is just my principle. I don't want to see any child lose her life because of blood.
O problema que eu estou tentando, que eu estou procurando resolver, ajudar, é tentar mesmo de dar dignidade, de dar segurança.
We're trying to enhance people's quality of life. A person with epilepsy refrains from doing a lot of stuff. Can you imagine you're an adult and you don't have autonomy?
Kula developed a refrigerator that is powered by heat instead of electricity. Kula's main focus is to solve the problem of remote locations that don't have access to electricity. They normally have to cool down vaccines and medication, and because they don't have electricity, they cannot do this.
There was a growing frustration I felt when I was working as an education technology teacher trainer because I was not able to support teachers of Arabic language.
Companies can't grow on this continent unless they have really, high-level, high-quality skills.
Poder proporcionar mais qualidade de vida e ver esse indivíduo de uma forma sendo inserido no mercado de trabalho, estudando, tendo lazer. Então isso para mim foi uma motivação.
Not just about giving access to women who don't have sanitary pads, but also bringing awareness to sustainable manufacturing as well.
And it just motivates me every day to know that I am actually doing something that matters to somebody else's life.
We believe that homework should not be about grade, but students should want to learn because they want to learn.
Well, a lot of the work that we do is making sure they have the right mindset so that by the time they get into the workforce, they can learn anything, right? So really teaching them how to learn.
We know we can have a really big impact, and we just want to see it out there. We can easily save like 1,000 vaccine doses per every single refrigerator load.
People that refrain from doing certain things can go back to doing. That's our main purpose in this project. Not depending on other people, it's a great freedom.
Now, today we are celebrating 18 extraordinary success stories, but anybody who has success knows that to achieve it, you have to dare to fail. So we've taken that theme for our final batch of finalists who will present 6 Dare to Fail talks in which they will share a story of how a major failure in their professional journey turned into a driver of success.
So in early May 2015, after 2 years of working on Change Water Labs, with no real success or breakthrough, I finally had some good news. Somebody was willing to take a bet on that crazy idea that we had to create a portable evaporative toilet to extend the access to sanitation in refugee camps and slums. We got our first proof of concept $40,000 check. And personally, I also found out that same morning that I was pregnant. So I was in a really good mood heading into a meeting with my team. We were going to launch a Hail Mary effort for 3 months to try to get our first prototype built so that we could hopefully meet up with a partner for a potentially funded partnership, pilot partnership. And I showed up at our coffee shop and I waited. Nobody else showed up. My 9-member team all decided to take vacation and forgot to tell me. So, with no team and a baby on the way, my brain kicked into how we were not going to be able to meet the grant deadline, and I was going to have to send this check back. And I was going to have to close down the company. The other thing that I had scheduled that day by accident or by coincidence was that I had a coffee meetup with a woman I'd been exchanging emails with for the last 6 months. She happened to be the other Egyptian-American female water entrepreneur in Cambridge. I was in no mood for a friendly coffee meetup, but I couldn't cancel. It was too late. Well, that day was born the best partnership that I've ever had. She turned out to be, this woman, Huda El Assad, she turned out to be my CTO and co-founder and a dear friend. So this coffee meetup ended up making Change Water Labs possible. Thank you.
Well done.
I had just moved back to India from Singapore. I was just starting my entrepreneurial journey. I was alone and was looking to onboard a few key people at Arboreal. So we started the search, started looking extensively throughout our networks collectively. One of the roles that we were looking to hire for was that of the COO, who was going to handle the supply chain part of our operations. And this person was going to be very critical for our operations, more so because I had no direct exposure to agriculture. So after months of searching, we finally found an excellent candidate. We spent a lot of time in onboarding him and getting him up to speed. We were really happy. Everything was going well until we received an email a few days before his actual joining date saying that he won't be able to join us after all, stating no reason whatsoever, and that we should start looking for another candidate. I didn't know what had just hit me. Did I just lose my chief operational officer 5 days ahead of the most critical trials that we had been planning for more than 6 months? What was I going to say to my investors? One of our large contracts was also contingent upon the success of these trials. I didn't know what to do. And looking for another candidate at this point would have meant losing out on another 12 months. So I decided to go down to the farms myself and conducted the trials myself. And guess what? We did just fine. The trials were a success, and we were able to close the contract that we were working on. Now, when I look back at that incident, it feels like it all happened for the better, and it gave me two key learnings. One was, it gave me hands-on experience and exposure to agricultural operations, and today I can say with pride that there's no part of my business that I can't handle myself. And the second was, when I was trying to handle the situation of crisis, I discovered strengths I never knew I had, and realized that I was capable of doing things that I never thought I could.
Danielle Newham said, and I quote, "Choose your co-founder like you would choose your partner, because the reality is, in the early days of your startup, you will spend more time with your co-founder than your partner." I'm seated in a meeting, contract in hand. I've worked so hard to ensure that I have this contract. I worked my head off to get this contract in my hand. But guess what? I couldn't sign the contract. Do you know why? My co-founder was nowhere to be seen. This wasn't the first time, it wasn't the second time, it wasn't the third time. I'd lost another customer. I'd lost another valuable customer. I knew at that moment that I had to take a bold decision and have this conversation with my co-founder. And I had to venture out and do it on my own. And then I started Vouch Digital, built new partnerships, and today I'm glad that I dared to persist. We have over 250,000 people who are using our platform and who've been impacted by our platform. So, be bold enough to have bold conversations with your co-founders before you start up with them. And more importantly, make sure that you share the same values. Talk about values, talk about the same mission, and make sure that the people you have align with your values. Thank you so much.
Be careful going down.
Eight months ago, me and my female co-founder started to raise our first investment round for our company, Sehat Kahani, that connects female doctors to patients in Pakistan who lack access and coverage. And for two female founders running a woman-led business, that wasn't an easy deal. But then we got a VC firm interested in us, and that made us really excited. So the CEO met us, and he said he was really inspired and he wanted to invest. We were very happy, and he called us for a follow-up meeting. As he sat us down in this elaborate boardroom, he went, "I'm very excited that you're so passionate and committed about your business. But I also know that you're not going to do this forever. You are going to give up because you have one child each and you will have more." My co-founder at that time was expecting. He looked at us and he said, "You need a man to run this company. So I'm offering a 75% stake to run your company so that you can do what you can do best." We were so angry and humiliated. But we didn't say anything. We just said that these terms are not negotiable, and we came back. But on that day, the two crazy ladies made a promise to each other that we will raise investment and we will show him that 2 Pakistani women are worth the money. 6 months later, we raised our first round. And as the world celebrated with us, I sent a very simple message to this guy. I said, "Sir, we raised our first round. We're extremely happy. We're going to raise our Series A funding soon, and we want you to join the journey with us. Thank you."
As a child, I dreamt of becoming a scientist, but I had dyslexia. No matter how much I worked, I failed. And I know about failing, okay? I've been failing half of my life. And I failed because of my mistakes. I had so many mistakes in reading and writing, and I wanted so bad to get rid of these mistakes. I did everything that I could. I learned the books by heart. I learned every single rule and every single exception from the Spanish orthography. And at the end, I became a scientist. And my topic, guess what? Dyslexia. Yes. And in 8 years of research, the 3 most remarkable discoveries are mistakes. Really. So, let's go. First discovery. The mistakes that people with dyslexia make, I analyzed thousands of them, okay, are not random, okay? There are patterns on the mistakes that people with dyslexia make, reading and writing mistakes. These give us knowledge about dyslexia that we didn't have before. This means that these mistakes are powerful and that are valuable. The second discovery. If we use these linguistic patterns that we found in these mistakes, in combination with computer games and artificial intelligence, we actually can detect dyslexia. We made an experiment with 10,000 people, and we reached 90% accuracy in dyslexia detection within 15 minutes, and we actually feel a pattern with it. Second, okay, and the third discovery. Actually, if we put these linguistic patterns, all right, that we found in the mistakes, we integrate them into computer games, and we actually made 40,000 computer exercises and integrated in a computer game. These are helpful to overcome dyslexia. We conducted a randomized control trial and found that children, after playing these games for 8 weeks, significantly improve their reading and writing, okay? So, and it's about mistakes, right? So, with these results, I founded Dyslexia to change dyslexia globally, worldwide. And we integrated all these research results in our platform called Detective. So every child in the world can have access to screening and treatment by play. Up to now, we have reached, with Detective, 130,000 children in 55 countries in these 5 continents. So, okay. Yeah, I know, it's huge, right? Okay. So, these children, if they work, they won't fail. And they will be able to dream. As we say in Change Dyslexia, dreams, you know, I have this thing, you know. So, super useful for this. So, as we say in Change Dyslexia, dreams are not words to be read, but to become true. When I was a child, I really have to tell you, I hated my mistakes. Now, I tell all the children to embrace their mistakes because they have the key to overcome dyslexia. I find incredible that at the end, we found the solution for the mistakes in the mistakes. And and what I find much, much more incredible is that after so many years of searching for a solution, at the end, the solution for dyslexia was inside the people with dyslexia.
It was supposed to be a finance meeting. We were going to run some numbers ahead of fundraising. But instead, my co-founder told me she was quitting. She didn't want to do this anymore. A year into this crazy idea called Triage, my co-founders wanted out. We were out of money, tired and demoralized. They didn't believe in the dream anymore. We were wrong. I was a resident still in training, working 80-hour weeks. A first-time entrepreneur. I had no idea what I was doing. And I thought, maybe I should just give up too. But I couldn't accept that the dream was wrong. In the United States, the richest country in the world, doctors like me still rely on radios to receive information from ambulances. There's no name, no EKG that I can receive. Every year, 19 million Americans and 100 million people worldwide rely on this system, and it fails them. That's why we created Triage. Triage sends real-time patient information to doctors and nurses at the hospital from ambulances. It tracks ambulances in real time, and it sends photos, videos, and EKGs, saving 14 minutes per patient. 14 minutes. If you're struggling to breathe, if you're bleeding into your brain, if your heart has stopped beating, 14 minutes is the difference between life and death. I believed in those 14 minutes, and I found others who did as well. Today, Triage has helped over 100,000 patients receive faster care during a medical emergency. There are moments in your life when you will be faced with failure, when you are crushed. And in those moments, you have a choice. You can either let that failure define you and let that be the end of your story, or you can choose to get up and write your own chapter. I have failed and failed and failed, but failure does not define me, and it does not define you either. Together, let's show the world how we get up.
I don't know. I think I'd like to adopt all 18 of you and take you home for dinner, if that's okay. It's wonderful. Every finalist tonight is a winner in her own right. But of course, there can only be 6 laureates, and it is now time to announce them. The process, I have to say, to reach this stage has been very intense, and I want you to get a quick flavor of that intensity and see the passion devoted by everybody involved, the finalists, their coaches, the jury members, all of whom have worked so hard to reach this wonderful conclusion.
I feel blessed to be a part of these amazing network of women that are all here for some beautiful work that they're doing in their countries.
I feel there is so much power in this community.
The atmosphere here is very supportive. I was happily surprised how many new friends I made in such a short time.
This week has been crazy busy. We've done financials, we've done market interest, we've really actually learned about our personal brand.
I've jumped light years in terms of my education as an entrepreneur.
And what I'm really excited about is meeting with my coach, Jost.
So the atmosphere this week has been intense.
The 3 words that I would use to describe this week are
future thinking,
collaboration,
and very fulfilling.
Working on the presentation in front of the jury, which was changed I don't know how many times.
I have my final presentation tomorrow, so I'm equally excited and nervous.
The difference I'm looking for is sustainability.
An entrepreneur needs to be resilient.
And third one is creativity.
To announce the 2018 Cartier Women's Initiative laureates, please welcome back to the stage Cyril Vigneron. Do you want a microphone? Do you want a microphone? You don't have to say anything, do you? No.
I'm speechless again.
You're speechless again. Okay. We're good. I have no idea. Here we go. What are we going to do them? I've got it now. Hold it. If I could ask the representative of the Cartier partners to come up, INSEAD and McKinsey, could you come up? William? So, if I could ask you just to take your seats just for a brief moment. I just want to say that the Cartier Women's Initiative Awards, they resonate around the world. And before we celebrate let us take a moment to reflect how these laureates provide a unique opportunity for women's voices to be heard.